sins of our country have come rearing their ugly head once again this week. This is not to say that the sins of our country are not always present, or always damaging, or always persecuting and oppressing, because they are always there. But this week in particular, they have been felt by the general populace once more. George Floyd was murdered on Monday. His death is another in the long, long history of unarmed, innocent black men and women in America who have been killed by police and citizen vigilantes with little to no recourse for those who perpetrate these violent, hateful acts. Ahmaud Arbery, shot while jogging. Breonna Taylor, shot in her bed by police who were looking for a suspect that they already had in custody. These are just two of the more recent events that have gained national attention. Even on Monday, before George Floyd's death came to dominate the national news, Christian Cooper was threatened with police violence by Amy Cooper because he, a black man, dared to ask her, a white woman, to follow the posted laws of maintaining her dog on a leash in an area of Central Park where that is required. Here in Longview and Cowlitz County, we are largely insulated from these stories. And this is sadly by design. Our region has a very long history of driving African Americans and other people of color out of our area, pushing them to the sides of our community, pushing them into neighborhoods and churches that were built for people of their kind. And these actions were unfortunately quite successful. Our county is 91% white. But even as we are insulated from diversity in this county, our country is not. And we have a responsibility as Christians, especially as white Christians, to use our voices of power in our society to demand justice for all people. It's in our very DNA as Christians, as we promise in our baptismal covenant, will you strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being? I will with God's help. This is not a statement of theology we make. It's a statement of action. It's a statement that all of God's creation, all of our siblings in this creation are equal, that demands we honor and recognize the dignity of every human being, and when that dignity is not respected, that we tirelessly work for justice and peace among all peoples. This Sunday we will hear once more the story of Pentecost, the birthday of the church. We'll sing a hymn that calls us to sing a new church into being, one of faith and love and praise. You will hear me preach about the opportunity we have to take this challenge on and literally breathe new life into our expression of church as we transition through the phases of reopening our building for in-person worship during this time of pandemic. We would be doing a disservice to each other if we didn't also take to heart our baptismal covenant and ask, how do we, as the church, begin anew to live into these promises we have made with God? It begins with education. Educating ourselves about the realities of life faced by our black siblings in Christ. Educating ourselves about how we as white privileged people with power can stand as allies even in our own community and can bring about real change in our culture and society. Educating ourselves about how our call as Christians must include constant, consistent, and public calls for justice for all people in our country, in particular those who have gone so long without access to the same justice we experience every day. In education, we cannot help but feel called to further our striving for justice and peace. We cannot help but feel that we too have a part to play in atoning for the sins of our country. We can do this as Christians in the power of the Spirit that comes upon us. We must